Computer. All right, welcome this evening. We are here tonight with the PCMS PTSA sponsored Vote for Issaquah Schools, Veevaert levy discussion. We have Martin Turney and Alcia Veevaert. I said it right?
Alcia Veevaert, yeah.
Alcia Veevaert, who are going to share with us some information on the levies, because I think a lot of people are wondering what's going on. What are these levies? There's a lot of misconceptions out there, and it would be great if we could just hear really quickly and understand a little bit more about what the levies do and why are we voting for them. So I may interrupt and ask a few questions, but I'm going to first just start off and turn it over to both of you to just explain, what your role is and tell us a little bit about these levies and why we should vote for them.
Great. I typically start off with the factual portion, if that's okay with you. Is it possible for me to share my screen? I may need to have permission.
You should have permission.
Okay. Here we go. All right, hopefully you can see that.
Now we can.
And we'll get started. Okay, so first question is, what is on the ballot? So we have 3 propositions that will be on the April 26th ballot. The first one is Proposition 1, Education Programs and Operations Levy. If you've been in the district a while, we used to call these M&O levies. It goes by a different terminology now. We also Proposition 2, Capital Projects Levy. That includes some technology and construction. And then Proposition 3 is just school bus only. So I'll get into some details here in just a second. And again, this is just the factual pieces. So, why is levy funding needed? Why are these 3 levies needed, right? So these ensure the sufficient funding for our day-to-day school operations, staff to support student mental health, including counselors, maintaining safety in our buildings, technology access. In this construction levy that I'll go into is also a portion to complete high school, the comprehensive high school number 4, and then purchasing buses. So all ISD students have equitable opportunities to succeed. So I'll start by getting a little bit of information on the EP&O. So this is not a new tax. We typically have run a 4-year EP&O levy. However, we have just run 2 2-year levies consecutively. And that was because there had been a pretty significant change in how the state funded school districts. So the board decided that it would be in our best interest as a district to go kind of shorter stints with these levies to see how that new system worked. And so now we're kind of returning to a 4-year EP&O levy and that traditional cycle. So this is a renewal. The EP&O levy makes up about 15.6 in the current budget of our operating revenue. So that is significant. That is important for the district to do what it needs to do on those daily operations.
So really, I'm going to pause you right there. Go back to,
Sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Martin.
Yep.
Help us understand. So what you're saying is if we do not renew this and vote for the EP&O levy, we're actually voting for a reduction of almost 16% of our budget.
Correct. So we would have less 15.6% less revenue to work with and to budget in the district.
Okay. So,
Correct.
And the fact it's not a new tax, are you going to address what the tax rate is and what it will be for most people who own a home?
I do not have a kind of a typical, but I can go into that when I have, later on I have some tax rate stuff. Yeah, we can revisit that.
That's great. No, continue on. Sorry to interrupt. I'm just,
no problem. So some of the items that are included in the EP&O that they pay for, things like school nurses, counselors, educator salaries. So the amount of teachers that we have above what the state funds, and some of the extras that we do with those salaries, mental health supports, instructional coaches, 7-period day in the high school, family partnership and equity programs, and our extracurricular activities and athletics that are not funded by the state. Additionally, academic programs, the first one listed there is special education. And unfortunately, between the state and federal government, we do not receive enough to fulfill our legal obligations there. So locally, we need to backfill that by about $7.2 million. So that is an important piece and an obligation the district has to provide. English language learner program, highly capable, elementary dual language, secondary summer school, and pre-K. So these are some of those programs that the community has asked for and we've provided as a district. So some of the other things are support services. So the ability to hire adequate custodial services. Those obviously became very important over the last couple of years when we're dealing with COVID and additional cleaning in response to that. Maintenance positions, our school safety and security department, particularly middle schools. We now have a security person at the middle schools that we hadn't had before. Security systems, bus driver salaries, and school bus fuel and maintenance. The state does not adequately fund the full cost of running the transportation department. So that's what the local funds address. So that's the EP&O. I'm going to talk about that second proposition too, that comes under a capital levy. So there's a couple of 2 or 3 components of this. And the first one being the student and classroom technology. So we do not get money from the state to buy all the technology that is really important in this day and age for students to have and teachers to have in the classroom. So that's what this levy funds. And again, this is a renewal as well. However, something new in this iteration of that levy is what we're kind of calling a hybrid one-to-one computer initiative, where there would be laptop computers available on a 1-to-1 ratio at the high school that students could take home. In 3rd to 5th grade, they would also have a 1-to-1 ratio, but those laptops would stay at school. 1st and 2nd grade would be 2-to-1, and kindergarten 3-to-1, those would stay at school. So obviously students in younger grades utilize those differently. And embedded in this is also professional development for our teachers to be able to provide one-to-one initiative and to do it well. Another component of the capital levy that falls under this, again, this is a renewal. This is something that we continue to put out to voters, and this funds critical repairs, things like maintaining our HVAC systems, doing needed roof repairs, safety. So if we do safety vestibules or key card systems, that's embedded in here as well. And that from year to year can depend on what building, what cycle we're in, whether they need a roof repair, if it's time to do that, or if their HVAC system needs to be attended to. So we go through kind of a priority process to perform those critical repairs. And then something new in this capital levy is the funds to complete, to be combined with existing bond funding to complete the 4th comprehensive high school. This project was part of the 2016 bond package. And over time, the pandemic in particular, and just overall construction costs have inflated the cost to do the project, right? So many things have cost more over time. We've also had some changes to city and neighborhood requirements, adding some additional green space to the project and some permitting that weren't initially anticipated. So those have added costs to the project. And so that additional is embedded in this capital levy.
One more question on this, Martin.
Yep.
How much of the capital levy is going toward the high school versus all of the other things you talked about?
Sure. So It's $44 million would be this portion for the high school. About 9 million would be critical repairs, and roughly 14 or 15 million, I believe, is the technology portion.
Okay.
So I'm doing it off the top of my head, and I feel like I'm pretty close, but we can look at the total in just a second. Hopefully I got that right. Yep. So I include this in here because, you know, as a district, I'm sure you've heard that we've had falling enrollment, particularly since the pandemic started. So as a district as a whole, we've had declining enrollment. However, at the high schools, we have still seen this increase, with the exception of the 2021 and that real COVID year where we got hit, we had the dip. So we have needed this fourth comprehensive high school. When we started this conversation back in 15-16, high school enrollment's only increased. We have about 26 classrooms between Issaquah High and Skyline High that are in portables. So the need still exists. So I like to point that out. And then that final proposition 3, this one's fairly simple. This is strictly to purchase buses. And what it does is when we purchase buses, over time, the state gives us back a certain amount of money so we can repurchase buses in the future. That usually funds about 2/3 of what it really takes to buy what you need. We typically do 4-year plans of how we're going to purchase buses. We have 64 buses in this 23 to 26 plan. Combining these levy dollars with the existing state reimbursement dollars would allow us to fulfill that plan. And part of that includes being able to grow the fleet to accommodate routes for the new comprehensive high school. So this kind of sets us up for where we need to be going forward over those 4 years.
So another question, Martin, is this a 4-year levy or is it a 1-year levy?
Oh, yes, thank you. I talked about 2 different things. So what we typically do on the bus is we do a 1-year levy where we collect, in this case, it's $3 million if passed. We use those funds over the next 4 years to fulfill our purchase plan. So our internal plan to purchase. So the levy itself is only 1 year, but we use it to combine to fulfill that 4-year plan. Yeah.
And is that what we've done in the past? Every 4 years, we kind of come up with, we say, we're going to do a 1-year levy, just to provide capital expenses for school buses?
Correct. We've typically done that in the first year of every 4-year cycle. We've done this. I believe it's been in the $2 to $3 million range. Most of them in the most recent iterations of this. Yeah. So yeah, just a quick look at what the actual dollars look like here. So for the EP&O levy, again, this is a 4-year, right around $1.43, $1.42 would be the rate per 1,000 of assessed value. And I can talk about the rate again in just a second. What would be generated per year? You see first year 61 million up to 70 million. These are set amounts, and I'll talk about this again in just a second. These would not change. So for instance, if assessed value goes up, we do not collect more than this. These would be set. If voters vote on this, this is the limit. All right, so those are set. For that capital levy, it varies slightly year to year. Sometimes because when we get in cycles of computer purchases and things, it's higher in 1 year versus another. So it depends on the year, on what the dollar amount would be. Again, the range somewhere between 73 cents to 81 in there. And the last one, the small one, that was that single year we just talked about. It's 7 cents estimated per 1,000 of assessed value, $3 million in total. So let's see. I think, yeah, there we go. So go ahead.
Up there, this is where I was going to go. Is I was going to say, what is the overall taxes that the local school district is generating from our house, basically for our value of the property values?
Sure. So I'll answer that. I'll try to answer that. So it's probably surpassed this now, but throughout the entire district, we're somewhere in the $1 million range in that median, and which makes the math pretty easy. So I'll try to use that, right? That second bullet point, 3.56 per thousand, is about $3,560 in total per year, right? So of your total tax bill, which includes many other things besides this would be $3,560 if you had $1 million home. Now, I will tell you that $3.56 includes the existing bond portion, which I didn't talk about today. It includes those three that we did just talk about. We also have an existing amount from the bond, so those have been set already. And those combined, so the first bullet shows the previous 2 years in that 2-year cycle. It averaged about 351. Obviously, it varies up and down. I'll show you a chart in just a second. We try to keep it relatively flat and stable. So this proposed tax rate is estimated at $3.56 per thousand. And again, we try to keep it steady. This is from 1998, projected out through 2032. The previous 4 years, you can see, varied up and down, 346 to 363. Again, the last 2 years averaged those two 351. We're trying to keep it flat at 356. You can see those 4 years there. And then what we do is we look at the bond, all the levies, and we say, okay, how can we plan this out to maintain a stable tax rate as much as possible? So that was the target, and that's where we're trying to stay.
So actually the overall tax rate for the district, and this is all the taxes that the district is actually collecting, correct?
Correct.
From our home values, is fairly low, given the path. If you look from 1998, it's actually right on the bottom end. There's only a few years we've actually had a tax rate less.
Correct.
Okay.
And really, these are also estimates. So if we continue to see rapid increase in assessed value, the rate actually would fall.
It would go down.
Yep. So just some other frequently asked questions, some things to elaborate on. What's the difference between a school bond and school levy if you're not used to these terms? So levies are for learning. It's a slogan that's sometimes put out there. Usually that's in reference to the EP&O levy because it kind of funds those day-to-day nuts and bolts kind of things. Levies can also be used for capital improvements. That's when I talked about the high school 4 and the critical repairs. So that also falls under the quote unquote levies. Bonds are for building. So bonds typically, and if you happen to be around in 2016, it was $533 million package, multiple schools, building new schools or doing complete remodels of schools. So those are those big construction projects, and when bonds are typically used. You may have heard that school districts are receiving federal money for COVID response, COVID relief. And indeed, we received about $7 million. In a district our size, that's actually fairly small in consideration of what it took initially to respond, purchase PPE, additional cleaning supplies, all those things that we needed to do as a district to respond to COVID as it happened. The way that the funds were dispersed to districts was based on our free and reduced lunch percentages. And as a district, we are one of the largest districts with a fairly small free and reduced lunch percentage, ranging between 8% typically up to around 10%. School districts are higher in the 50% range or higher. They received as much as say 10 times what we received. So some districts received quite a bit more in relief money than we had. This is one-time money. So again, when we talk about levies and things that support our day-to-day operations, we can't rely on these relief funds because they're one-time and not ongoing funds. So,
and are they gone in 2023?
that is the duration of when we can use them. We have completely utilized them. We are in the process of just doing the final claim on those. So yeah, they're exhausted for us. So those districts that had a lot more, I'm sure, are still working through that, and they'll draw it out a little bit further. They may even go through 2024 in the last round of the ESSER money. There is a state property tax for education. So if you look at your tax bill on the assessor site, you'll see, part of your tax bill is a state education amount, and along with it is our local amount that we just talked about based on the rate. So a portion of those property taxes go directly to school districts. So you as a taxpayer pay those. They are redistributed throughout the state to districts as our state apportionment. There was a change back in 2017 where they reduced the amount that we could ask for and collect locally in the form of levies. But what this is just saying that this is still a significant, obviously, portion of our operating revenue and important for us to operate. So I think I touched on this. What happens if property values increase, they go up, the rate's going to be adjusted downward. We cannot collect more. So if this passes, those numbers that you see on there are it. We will not collect anything more if assessed values continue to go up at an increased rate. So I'd like to throw this in here too. Low-income seniors and people with disabilities may qualify for exemptions, and there's some contact information. I know this is on our website as well. And that pretty much rounds out my slides. I don't know if there are additional questions.
Thanks, Martin. Anybody else have any questions for Martin?
Thank you for enduring that.
No problem. I mean, I'll have questions later, but I'm going to let turn some time over to Alcia. Do you have any presentation, or you just want to talk to us?
Well, I'll probably just talk, but typically I will throw some links into the comments or the chat, but since this is recording for other people later, I don't know if that will show up on the recording. So maybe I will try to share a screen, but so basically I'm here to ask people to vote for all three of these levies. I am a yes vote on these. I like to say, as Martin was talking about the, when you get your tax bill and you see the property taxes and you'll see the education portion, you'll see the state education dollars. I believe this year it still says McCleary Act as a second line item for education dollars. And all of those go, as Martin said, to the entire state. Then there'll be a line item that will say local school dollars. And that is what we're voting for. So I like to say that passing bonds and levies are the largest school fundraiser that we can do as a community, because it is what we as a community are voting with our dollars to say, this is what we want for our students. We're going to put our money into these programs, into these supports for our students in our district. Those dollars that we vote on that say local levy dollars, those stay in our district and they are for our students. So it is the one way that we can, as a community, support our district schools. Then, of course, there's ISF and the Issaquah Schools Foundation. They ideally are there to help support extra stuff beyond just basic needs, like having extra nurses. As Martin said, the state only funds 3.5 nurses for the entire district. So our levy dollars are paying for this extra nurses to be in all of our schools. As the material shows, it pays for all the mental health counselors that we know that our students are benefiting from right now. Everything that on these levies are programs that we already have, and these are just renewals. So there's nothing new here. We are renewing like a subscription. If I want to keep getting these services and supporting these programs, I need to renew these because these programs are supporting, as you said, a little over 15% of the entire district's budget. For all of the things that we say we want for our students, that we say as a community are important for the students and the community that go to the Issaquah School District. So that's why I'm asking people to support these 3 levies. And there are multiple ways you can do that. So one of the things is you can absolutely, the ballots are going to be coming in the mail. They'll be mailed next Wednesday on April 6th. It's hard to believe it's already going to be here. So it'll be next Wednesday. They will be in the mail, which means maybe they'll be here Thursday and Friday. And then guess what? We have spring break. We have spring break in the Issaquah School District. What is it? The 11th through the 15th. And the ballots are due in the mail or at a drop box by April 26th. So if people are heading out of town, it would be fantastic if when you get your ballot in the mail that you would check 1, 2, 3, yes, vote for the levies, and then drop those right off at a Dropbox or in the mail before you head out of town so that you don't have to be digging for it when you get back. But as a reminder, we are going to have several honk and wave events. I'm sure you've seen us in the past where we're out there with our signs. Students are out there, they're waving, teachers are out there, administrators are out there, and there'll be 2 events that we will be having. And that is just to remind people, one will be out there on Wednesday the 6th to remind everybody that these will be coming in the mail. Look for your ballot, vote yes, get it in before you head out of town or just enjoy a week off of school. And then we will have another honk and wave event for anybody that would like to participate on the 25th of April. So it'll be the day before. And that will be just to remind everybody, it's like, oh, if you haven't gotten it in yet, look for those ballots and get those in before tomorrow. So we will have those 2 events. Those details are on our website. And let's see if I can share that. I don't know if I... let's see, this is endorsements, but this is another thing that you can go to our website and you will see that there's an endorsement page. Is that sharing that?
Yep,
There's
sharing.
an endorsement page where you can go. Up here's the address, and you can see all the information here, including the exact language that will be on the ballot, so that you can see exactly what it is that will be in the voter's guide. You can add your name here, send it in, and just join all the other people that have endorsed so far. This is a place where a lot of people will come and they'll look and they'll say, well, who do I know that's voting for this? Who do I know that's supporting it? It's a great way to help get the word out. So you can see we already have a long list of people that are supportive of this. The honk and waves, for anybody that would like to participate, we would love to have you out there. This is also a great way for teens. If they need community service hours, they can participate in these honk and waves. And we do have volunteer sheets somewhere here, community service forms that can be signed for if they show up, they can help. And then they can get some hours for helping us do that. But these are the 2 dates and the times, and these will be the location events for where we would gladly use some support and some help with getting the word out. The other thing is that talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your if you have kids that are in preschools, because those parents may not even know about this yet, but they're going to be the recipients of enjoying all of these programs once their kids get into like kindergarten and those early grades. My last child just graduated Skyline last year. And so I'm officially out of the system, yes. And yet, I'm still here doing this because, and supporting these because somebody did it for my kids. Back in the day, somebody supported and voted on these bonds and levies, and my kids benefited from these. And so it's just me paying it back and saying how valuable these are. I'm trying to think if there's really anything else. So mostly it's just get your ballots in, talk to your friends and neighbors, let them know that to get their ballots in too, ask them if they've already voted. I say that a lot. It's like, oh, have you got your ballot in the mail? I already sent mine in. It's an easy little thing to do. Just casually mention it and say, oh yeah, I'm supporting the levies. I hope you will too. So there's no presumptions. Let's see what else. I guess that's it. Although if you do have questions, if you come across other people, I know that people at the district office are happy to answer questions. We at the Volunteers for Issaquah Schools, which is the organization I'm volunteering with, we are happy to set up speakers just like tonight and to have somebody come and present and answer any questions that you may have. The admin will show up, we will show up, and mostly just if you still have questions or if you have neighbors or friends that are still on the fence, they're just not sure what this is and how this is going to benefit them, please have them email either us at VIS or somebody at the district, and they will be happy to answer your questions directly as far as these levies and what they support, and especially about the tax rates. So I think that's about it. It's just, for my part, it's just please vote yes on all three. Please encourage others. Please get those ballots in as soon as you get them in the mail. And I don't know if there's any questions anybody would possibly have for me on this, but if there are, I would be happy to answer them. Other than that,
I've got some questions for both of you. I'm going to put you on the spot. So some of them are easy, some of them are not. The first question, Martin, I understand. So tell me, does this levy, do the levies of the bonds need to pass with a supermajority, or is it just 50%?
So bonds have the supermajority. So we don't have any on this ballot, so we wouldn't need to worry as far as how that would work. So these are all 50%. All three of these would be 50%.
Okay, so we just need 50% or more. So that's good. The other question I have, this is maybe Alicia or Martin, is what do you tell people when they say, last year was really tough and it looks like we're, enrollment's dropping and maybe we don't need as much money in the school districts because the enrollment's dropping, we don't have as many students. What kind of response do you give to those people?
Well, I'll just say that as a parent who's had students through here and actually went through, last year with lower enrollment, the services are still needed. Those support systems, the mental health counselors, the school nurses, special education, those services are still needed regardless. Those don't, school nurses, that number doesn't go down just because we may have fewer students in the classroom. Every school still needs to have a school nurse. Every school still needs to have the mental health supports for those students. That might even, if you were worried about lower enrollment, that might actually open up more opportunities for your student to get to that mental health counselor. But I see a lot of people coming back, and it'll be, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask Martin, how do we get funding though? If our students drop off, what happens to our state funding?
The state, so it is student attached. So there's a certain amount per student that we get in general apportionment. And so it will drop. So what has happened is we have dropped enrollment. And in the last, not to get too into the weeds, but there has been some state relief to kind of ease districts and see if enrollment was going to rebound. Well, that's kind of now to the end, it's exhausted. And so we are now in that place where we kind of right size where we need to be. So when that does happen, when we do lose enrollment, the system kind of contracts and right sizes itself to student enrollment. Yeah.
Okay. So if I understand right, then we're not getting any extra money from the state because we lose students, and we go, oh, look, we've got lots of money. We're just gonna, so we still need this money for these levies because there is still a gap.
Yes, and so when I speak, I have to speak without advocacy. So what I can tell the facts. So I just kind of would return folks back to that significant portion of the revenue that it takes to run the district, the programs that are attached to those. And so without those funds, those things would not be there. Well, or the district would make decisions in the budget on how to retract by that amount.
Okay. Those are my tough questions. Hopefully they're not too tough. Just trying to clarify things. These are things I've heard other people say. So I just want to make sure we address some of the other comments that people have made.
Absolutely.
I've heard people asking if we were getting additional McCleary dollars. And I understand the answer to that is no. All the McCleary money is there. It's on the property tax line item, and there is no additional funds coming from any more McCleary dollars. What we have is what we have.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
But that is one question I've heard people saying is that, oh, aren't we supposed to be getting more state funding from McCleary? The answer to that is no.
Okay. Is there anybody else in our audience that has any questions or comments before we wrap up this session tonight? Okay. Well, I'm going to close. We did have in our general membership meeting today, we did support all 3 levies today. We voted as a general membership. We'd also voted as a PTSA leadership too to support that. So you're going to see the Pacific Cascade Middle School supporting all 3 levies. I think everyone in the PTSA are very supportive of these levies and the needs for these levies to support our kids. My biggest advocacy point, since I can advocate, is just without these monies, we would see a significant reduction in services. We have a great school district. I know, anybody can have issues with whatever school, or every school district has their ups and downs, but I think we do have a really great school district here in Issaquah, and losing the amount of money that would be in these levies would be really hard for our district and impact many students as well as many schools, and impact the ability to continue to have our students be successful going forward in a real way. So I personally support these levies strongly. I think they're really valuable and go to real services. They're not just for fluff programs or for things that don't mean much. So I support them, and I think our PTSA is also agrees and support them.
Thank you.
And if there's no other comments, then we'll close with thank you for your participation. We'll post this on YouTube and then put links on our website so that we can see this. And
Great.
Thanks for joining us, Alcia and Martin. I appreciate your coming out on a Thursday evening when so many other things are going on, and sharing your wonderful insights with us.
And thanks for having us. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Have a good night.